Hello, pro wrestling fans. We are back for another edition of the official NJPW English podcast. As always, my name is Walker Stewart. I'm alongside my co-host and good pal, professor of pro wrestling himself, Chris Charlton. Chris, we are both in Japan. We're in separate parts of Japan right now. I am in the lonely isle of Shin Yamaguchi, and you're enjoying your time at the New Japan offices. How are we feeling today?
On very little sleep. There's too much happening. That's why, right?
Right.
We're all over. But you had to bounce from where were you? Hiroshima to Yokohama, and then back out to Osaka.
Yes.
It's a weird, the morning of? No, it's tomorrow. Hizen no Kuni.
Yes.
Right, Tiger Mask going for the IWGP Junior title one more time. We're going to get salty Tiger Mask. I'm sure that's a show that everybody's already seen.
Sure.
But I think in advance of that, I think there'll probably be fallout, I dare say, about Best of the Super Juniors. So we didn't do a podcast this month until right at the end of the month. Right. So I guess the bonus will be 2 in the next 2 weeks, because I think probably Hizen no Kuni will strongly shape up Best of the Super Juniors.
Sure. I mean, you'd imagine so, certainly. And we're going to be talking about in the future maybe some results from Wrestling Hizen no Kuni, but more so Best of the Super Junior 33 is going to be coming up, May 14th? We're kicking off, correct?
Yes.
And it's going to be a Best of the Super Junior tournament. You can never miss them. And one of my favorite tours, one of my favorite tournaments of the year. It's like the G1, but not as hot, physically in Japan, like the temperature. And I, as a large man, I really appreciate that. So, that's a good piece of business for me right there. And I'm very excited for what's going to happen. Best of the Super Junior 33. But Chris, there's a little bit more present excitement in the air with the upcoming Golden Week and the upcoming Wrestling Dontaku Night 1 and Night 2 that we're going to have coming out of Fukuoka.
And the return of me, Walker Stewart. It's me,
no.
GINO Gambino.
No.
Blush.
Oh, God.
Donkey chokey.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, well, we, not to start off the podcast with a piece of bad news, but here we go. Gino Gambino will be returning to the English broadcast booth for the first time in New Japan Cup 2024, I think, is the last time we were graced with Gino's presence, and now he's back. Who did this? How did we get here?
Why don't you like Gino?
I don't. I think that's a story for another day.
That's something we're going to have to explore further.
Apparently so.
It's a wrestling.
Well, and it's been 2 years, and you'd have to hope. He went through this massive physical transformation. Maybe he goes through a spiritual transformation as well. We're gonna have to see. As it'll be Wrestling Dontaku Night 1, Night 2. Walker Stewart, Chris Charlton, and Gino Gambino on board. The official New Japan global social media account posted a picture with Gino and a coffee-stained shirt from, I believe, the Tokyo Dome, right?
File photo.
Oh, yeah.
So Gino spilled coffee on his tux about during the pre-show to Wrestle Kingdom 20, I think. Wrestle Kingdom 20, Wrestle Kingdom 14, Night 2, and then instructed a young lion, and I won't divulge who, to sprint to the hotel and get in his hotel room and bring him a shirt in time for the start of the main show, and they did it.
That's incredible. If I'd have known that I could have thrown my weight around like that when I first showed up here. If you remember well, it was Edion Arena Osaka, the sub arena number 2, that you and I first met. And you were like, hey, let's go, let's try a local ramen spot that I like. And so we went to this ramen place, and I guess I didn't understand that ramen is as oil-based as it is. And I got ramen all over my shirt that first show. And I did everything in my power to try and hide it, because I did not know that Young Lions could just go back to the hotel. And you specifically did not let me go back to the hotel to change. So I guess in some ways, more than I'm comfortable with, me and Gino Gambino are in sync. So Wrestling Dontaku Night 1 and Night 2, we'll be seeing Gino Gambino back here. Always a pleasure for some to have Gino in the building, and it's gonna be a good night. But it's gonna be even better because of the wrestling, Chris. That's what we're here for, right? New Japan Pro Wrestling. This isn't New Japan Pro GINO. Certainly not me. So,
well, if somebody had their way.
Well, yeah. You're not lying. Night 1, night 2, May 3rd, May 4th, we celebrate Golden Week with a bang, and I for one am very excited. There's a lot of moving parts to this, obviously. Night 3 going to be night 1 on May 3rd, going to be setting up a lot for night 2 on May 4th when it comes to a couple of preview tag team matches, and we could get into the May 4th situation in just a moment. But to kick things off here, Chris, I mean, it has been about a month and a half, 2 months now that Aaron Wolf has wanted to get his hands on Don Fale. Special singles action that we have set for on May 3rd. And a couple of talks about certain numbers, millions of yen being put on the line by one of the members of this matchup. Talk to me a little about it.
Well, so Aaron Wolf did this 10 million yen tough man contest on Abima, which was a really spectacular deal. The guy had to have 6 fights over the space of 1 day, and went through, I think like it was open to the public kind of, and they had like a bunch of auditions, and then it came down to some people that were reasonably well known, but that could have a shot, and then the last stretch, right? He had like this guy who fights for Ryzen. And then from there he had Balajdo, who was like a former sumo wrestler. Really, probably, I've been saying that's the most applicable to this match with Don Fale, because it's similar size, similar weight being thrown around. And then, in the last fight, he fought actually a guy who was his college senior, and another judo gold medalist. And he went through all of these guys, 6 guys, in the space of 1 day, with the rules being like, it was either a 3 count pinfall or the first person to throw or get thrown, right? And anybody that could throw Aaron Wolf or pin him for 3 would get 10 million yen, was the deal. Aaron Wolf managed, thankfully, to protect his honor, protect his wallet, and protect New Japan's honor and wallet, because I think we'd all be in trouble if we were down 10 million yen on the night. But yes, Don Fale saying in recent post-match comments, like, hey, I threw you and I pinned you for 3, so I should get 10 million yen. That's not quite how it works.
Sure.
And I don't think that's quite going to be how it works. But I think I will greatly enjoy Aaron Wolf throwing Don Fale. I hope that happens.
Sure.
And I hope that Aaron Wolf can pin Don Fale and then move onwards and upwards.
I think that the real looming threat, as there always is, and we'll talk about this in the semi-main event for this night 1 on Wrestling Dontaku May 3rd as well, but the real looming threat, as always, being the other members of House of Torture that could at some point find themselves involved at ringside. And we saw that whenever Ren Narita defeated Aaron Wolf back in Osaka for the Never Openweight Championship. We saw that back in the New Japan Cup first round where Don Fale first beat Aaron Wolf. That's led to really so many of these issues, building over the past month and a half. And so, I guess my question going into this, and I want to pitch this to you, Chris, is what's the difference maker here? Do you think Aaron Wolf, I for a while we talked a little bit about maybe Aaron Wolf trying to, yes, a member of Hontai, but really wanting to stand out solo in his own way. And it seems like he's taken on a little bit more of a kinship with those, Yano and Oleg and such that he's been teaming with recently.
Well, I think, the point of him being, I think, if the folks I haven't seen is in Nagini, we're talking about a bit in advance of that. But I wonder whether he'll be one of the lumberjacks in that match with Tiger Mask and Doki. But I think, I think he's been sort of, I think a little bit humbled in the first few weeks of his career. And I think like even though coming in as Hontai and always a firm favourite. But I think there might have been a little bit of ego on the part of Aaron Wolf in the first few weeks, instead of being like, the guy who storms in, beats Evil, becomes the Never Openweight champion on his first night in front of a sold out Tokyo Dome. That's going to be something that has anybody a little bit proud of themselves. and probably was saying just as much in the locker room. And then it becomes a point of fact of, well, you've got Ren Narita, or you've got Don Fale. Let's see what you got, big man. Come on there and see what you could do on your own. And he got fairly badly beaten. And I think like that was probably a key learning experience for Aaron Wolf. And in the time since, you've seen a lot more, I think, personal growth with him when it comes to teaming with the Hontai members. I think it's interesting. He said in an interview that will be up on NJPW1972.com by the time you hear this, but Aaron Wolf being very vocal about wanting to get out of the House of Torture mind, so to speak, and wants to be wrestling singles matches, specifically with other young lions, specifically with Tatsuya Matsumoto, who's he's gotten to have like quite a close friendship with. And he sees this match as being key to kind of put that behind him. And I think it probably also factors in immediately. I would say, almost certainly you could sort of pin this up as this is a de facto number one contendership match for the Never Openweight Championship as well. I would be very surprised if it is not. And I think whether Don Fale, Don Fale and Ren Narita would probably the House of Torture, hook might be in, the fix might be in terms of that, and the rest of House of Torture making sure that Ren Narita, or at least the House, keeps onto their belt. If not, Don Fale has unfinished business with Boltin Oleg stemming from last September. Or the other permutations. Aaron Wolf would definitely like another crack at Ren Narita further down the line, especially if you think of Dominion and Osaka Joe Hall. He was screwed out of the Never Championship in Osaka, and everything kind of stems backward. Or, I think like the dream scenario for a lot of wrestling fans coming out of this would be Aaron Wolf facing up against the new Never Openweight champion Boltin Oleg.
Oh.
So I think all of those situations are exciting. And I put it to you, Walker, the most probably tantalizing prospect out of Aaron Wolf being more sync with Hontai. And we were thinking, like, before we started on this podcast, we said, okay, we're going to talk about Dontaku. What else can we talk about? Well, we could talk about how dominant Knockout Brothers have been. Moving up to V6, defending against Bishamon in Hiroshima. The big talk of who can face the Knockout Brothers right now. I've got a dream team for you, Walker, Stewart.
Yeah.
And something that we've seen in the last few weeks in trios, but not as a duo, like Aaron Wolf and Boltin Oleg right there. That is a dream fucking tag team that I would love to see, at least have a shot at the IWGP Tag Team Champions at some point this year.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. Boltin Oleg and Aaron Wolf will be an incredible tag team. I mean, that's one of those, inject this into my veins type tag teams. You know what I mean? I want to see this. And I want to see it now. So, I mean, we got to be careful. We're putting this out into the ether. I think that we want it to happen. But let's temper expectations here. The Knockout Brothers have been absolutely it's been otherworldly, the rise and the reign that these two guys have been on, and it really came out of left field, especially by comparison to a lot of recent returns from Excursion that we've seen, where it's kind of taken a little bit to get the ball rolling for a couple of guys like Yuya Uemura and Ryohei Oiwa, and you kind of go down the list, right? And so for the Knockout Brothers to just storm into this situation, set a record back in Hiroshima, by the way, and you and I were talking about that a little bit before I went on the air that day. This idea that the two first-time champions scoring as many defenses in this quick amount of time as they have, it's been incredible to watch.
Yeah, the winningest team of two first-time champions. I think everybody sort of talks about, obviously, Bad Intentions have the defense record of V10, but that was Giant Bernard's second reign and Carl Anderson's first reign. So this is the first time where we've had two first-time champions already get to V6. There's a lot of teams on that border. If they got one more, let's say, and they get to V7, then it really is. It's like Bad Intentions. It's Gorillas of Destiny in like their last reign, and Choten, Masahiro Chono and Hiroyoshi Tenzan. and it's that then you're like top 4 reigns of all time, so it really is very significant. And I think the thing is as well, those first couple of defenses, I think, even if we sat down and talked with Ice or talked with Oscar before a match, I think there was like something in the back of their mind saying, we've had a good run already, almost preparing themselves for the eventuality that they would drop those championships. Because, and I think like they were up against very, very highly motivated teams within those first few. When you talked about like Umino and Uemura specifically on their second try, or Oiwa and Zack Sabre Jr., who are coming off the World Tag League win at New Year Dash. And then again the second time as well, very personally motivated to get wins over Ice and Oscar as well. I think that was key. And they were very strong arguments to be made that they could have taken those championships. Bishamon, the most successful team of the first half of this decade, there's a very convincing argument that they could take those championships, and Hiroshima came very, very close to doing it. But now, I think they are over that threshold where you kind of go, there's a lot of other teams that I think you could set up to go after those championships, right? I think like Hinari and Great Okan, even though they lost to Bishamon, there's still that aspect of they never lost the tag titles, right? I think if you look at one team, even if it comes from within Unbound Company, right, like War Dragons, Shingo Takagi and Drilla Maloney, I think like, and I think the champions would be up for taking that challenge as well, right? But is there, among those teams, is there a team that can beat the Knockout Brothers? I would say like maybe about 2-3 months ago, I would say, maybe this team could, maybe this team could. I think like now you're on a very sort of short list of teams that could do it. And any team that can do it and does do it would instantly, make a huge, huge name for themselves.
Chris, it's very hard to argue against you at this point you're making, and that's why on May 4th it's going to turn to Tomoaki Honma and Toru Yano to get the job done.
Well, Honma, God bless him.
They're the most violent players, Chris.
Yeah, Honma teamed, I think, with Makabe one of the non-televised events, or maybe it's his end, and like then he's got this effort with Yano. You're right. The May 4th, I believe, is with Shota Umino, right? Yes. So his World Tag League team from a couple of years ago. So Honma is just going through the Rolodex like tag team partners that he's had. God bless Tomoaki Honma, who really, really wants to raise his stakes in the IWGP Tag Team Championship ranks. We'll see what happens. Yeah. We'll see what happens. Well, but to get back further, closer on point. Who do you have for Boltin and Narita? Yeah,
like that's the real cut and dry of it here is Boltin Oleg eliminated Ren Narita from New Japan Cup 2026, and Oleg said, hey, I think I deserve a match for the Never Openweight title now, become a 2-time Never champion, a fourth, but there's an opportunity for Oleg to walk away with 3 championships out of May 3rd heading into May 4th. I'd love to see it happen, and I think that, my gut has to go on the side of Boltin Oleg, but my gut's been wrong before, especially when it comes to House of Torture matches. You think that you have prepared for plan A through Z, and all of a sudden there's a double A and a double B, and we're running back through the alphabet. So I think Boltin Oleg would be my pick if it was against anyone other than Ren Narita.
Yeah, I think like you can't discount how capable Ren Narita is, even if you take House of Torture out of the equation. It's a difficult ask for Boltin, but he's beaten twice in a row. Not just in the New Japan Cup, but in G1 Climax a couple of years ago as well. Mm-hmm. So he's been able to crack that House of Torture code, but whether he can do it with the title online, we'll see what happens on Sunday.
Yes, and our main event, of course, Wrestling Dontaku Night 1, has a lot of people talking, especially after a recent interview that dropped, Chris. You know all about this. Yota Tsuji and some comments made about All Elite Wrestling, and there have been a plethora of comments over the years that New Japan Pro Wrestling Zone have made about AEW in positive and negative, and in somewhere falling in between. And Yota Tsuji is very outright said heading into Forbidden Door season now that he is not a fan of All Elite Wrestling, and is very much not looking at Andrade as a United Empire member, it feels like, but more so looking at him as this invading AEW force to defend the global championship against. I'd love to get your take on that.
Well, I think we need to redouble because, I think there are some people who, may have forgotten that, Tsuji's vision with this global championship was specifically to face it, to either defend it overseas or, underline, in Japan against outside competition.
Right.
And so that was the extent where when Gabe Kidd attacked Yota Tsuji at Sakura Genesis or after that match and instantly revealed that AEW t-shirt rat that he is. So Tsuji takes that challenge by dint of the fact that Gabe Kidd is now an outsider, we assume. But when it comes to Andrade, you're right to an extent, but I don't think in a particularly negative sense or a pejorative sense. He said in that interview he was excited, very, very happy to wrestle Andrade, and to have that match he feels in a way closer to that vision of a New Japan Pro Wrestler against an outsider than perhaps Gabe Kidd was, because I think memories of Gabe within New Japan Pro Wrestling very, very fresh. So I think in that sense it has motivated Tsuji to an extent. I really enjoyed the match that he had in Trenton, New Jersey, A New Beginning, that main event. And I think in Fukuoka it's going to be a distinct treat. I think Andrade having had that experience and having been somewhat humbled, not a very humble man is Andrade El Idolo, but having to submit to that Boston Crab and then come back. I think that does things to you, right? It certainly did something to Gabe Kidd. Mm-hmm. So, because that's how Tsuji won the Global Championship back last October, was to submit Gabe Kidd with that Boston Crab. And, here you have Andrade being, the instant that he has this opportunity to challenge, then he takes it, So it does make you think, then further into context of Konosuke Takeshita possibly plotting and planning for another chance at Yota Tsuji. But I think that the United Empire question is an interesting one. I spoke. I had a good hour-long call with Will Ospreay last week, and we talked about Andrade. We talked about Andrade's place within the United Empire. And certainly from Will's perspective, he was like, he didn't want to address it because there's previous in terms of who Andrade aligns himself in the United States. And Ospreay was pretty much, that's a Callum Newman decision. I'm not going to go into that because that's his business and not mine. He was willing to sort of be cordial with Andrade, but he said, the further I keep away from him, the better. So there is intrigue, I think, when it comes to Andrade's broader place within the United Empire, because here you're seeing those sort of universes colliding a little bit at Dontaku. But certainly, if Yota Tsuji's 2026 has been entirely dominated by the United Empire, right? And here you have this position potentially where, already having been beaten for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, to lose another title to another United Empire member would be quite the shock for Tsuji, and a huge come up for United Empire. If we talk about gathering gold, there's potential for United Empire to have the top two singles championships as well as the Never Six-Man championships coming out of the weekend.
Yeah, just to hit on this point before we get to Never Six-Man Gold, because I am very excited to talk about that match on May 4th. I think there's a lot of potential having a Never Six-Man tag title match in a semi-main event of a major show like this. It certainly shows, where that sits in the pecking order. But before getting to that, I think that there is something that needs to be said and really addressed about, when Yota Tsuji says that he does not, like AEW, Chris, it feels as though the world and the media, because it gets to be a big, buzz line and click point for people to talk negatively about other organizations, apparently. I've always read it as a competitive sense. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I've always read, it's never been, I do not like the people in AEW. I hate the fact that it exists. I hate that people have a place to go wrestle in America if that's their choice. It's the perception of New Japan compared to AEW that Yota Tsuji has a problem with. And by the way, I'm sure if Yota Tsuji was asked about WWE or TNA or any other organization in the world, he would say that he does not like them compared to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Right? Like there's this massive, conflation, I think, of people talking about, disliking of an organization. Yota Tsuji is New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that's been shown everything from his in-ring with the Boston Crab usage for a heavyweight title win in a semi-main event in the Tokyo Dome to everything that he said in the media. And, I think for that reason, it's very hard for New Japan Pro Wrestling fans specifically to bet against Tsuji going into Dontaku. It's on home turf in terms of home country being in Japan. I, for one, am just very excited for that matchup, and I think that there's a lot going into it that we're going to get to talk about on that night. I'm very excited for.
I think you've wrapped that up, very, very succinctly. I think my sentiments entirely. Maybe we need to be careful about how we position certain questions, and that's why we have GINO Gambino on the announced.
We're going to get GINO Gambino's thoughts on All Elite Wrestling, and the partnership ends.
I think it does speak to a broader sense, right? And perhaps more broadly about the internet culture or rage baiting and everything else, and possibly the way that your social media algorithms are designed as well, right? I think there's maybe it's the old schoolness of me, or the position of like I'm closer now. Millennials are nearly at the age where we get the okay boomer chat, okay millennial, but like sure. There's something about it's very nice to sort of see a story the next day after a big match where the winner of some big championship match comes out and talks to the press and said, like, I was so happy, we've had our issues over the course of the last few weeks and whatever, but I was so honored to wrestle such and such. I would have been just as happy if the other guy had won, right? And I think like that's very nice over like sort of tons of negativity to have like kind of that positive story come out of things. But at the same time, I think wrestlers, we've always made money in this business, and it's always the more exciting when there is a little bit of fire in the belly and a little bit of chip on the shoulder and a little bit of a little bit of hate, quite frankly, and if I think Tsuji making that line of like, not that if you don't hate these people, but like if you don't have the fire in your belly, and I think like that was the key line. If you don't, if it's competitive situation like this doesn't fire you up inside, if you don't have that fire within you, you don't deserve to be a champion in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah.
And I think that there is like, I think that is that key point, to sort of go back to the Yuto-iceness of it all. You should be here to fight and make money, get that high, like that to me, and that probably speaks to everybody in Unbound Company as well, right? I think there is that same mentality, right, of being very physical, very driven, and very sort of true to sort of your idea sets, and that isn't in a way that says somebody else isn't valid, but it's more like, I think I'm the fucking best, and like I'm gonna beat the shit out of you until like I win, hopefully. Yeah. And then we all make more money, and that's like I think is the genesis of competition. It's like the root of like what's great about pro wrestling.
Well, let's put a pin in that thought because I think we're going to come back to that exact same idea when we get to talking about the heavyweight championship on the line. Wrestling Dontaku 2026, night 2 with Shingo Takagi and Callum Newman. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about how we're going to open that night before we get to six-man tag team championship glory. It is Chase Owens challenging Konosuke Takeshita for the World Television Championship. And, yes, we'll see Chase Owens involved in this. Obviously, we'll see Yujiro Takahashi, I'm sure, at some point at ringside. But it was a mysterious third figure at ringside that I think a lot of people have kind of swept under the rug. And maybe that's intentional on the side of the house. But at Sakura Genesis, we saw this masked, incredibly well-dressed figure step up to Konosuke Takeshita. I'm very interested more so, and that's not to put down the idea of a Chase Owens Konosuke Takeshita singles match. I'm sure that this is going to blow a lot of people's expectations, but I guess where I sit with it is what the hell was that? I don't think we ever got answers there.
Do we see that individual again at Dontaku? Perhaps we do, perhaps we don't. Is that individual House of Torture aligned, or was Chase Owens taking advantage of the situation when he attacked Konosuke Takeshita at Sakura Genesis? Certainly there is, people have their theories. There are widely circled theories as to who that may be. We won't know until we know.
Yeah.
I think it's certainly there is more to this individually than meets the eye. And if there is a sudden distraction, if Chase Owens is like the ultimate opportunist in that respect, and don't discount the chance of new world television champion in Chase Owens. I think there's when you look at the card, obviously we're homing in on the title matches here, but there is a kind of a little bit of an asterisk and the most intrigue from my mind on the undercard before those top two, before you get into those top two, rather, Walker, and that is a very special tag team match: Kosei Fujita and Robbie Eagles, the brand new IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champions. In what is as of right now, a non-title match. Kosei Fujita has said, very open, and Robbie Eagles has said as well that, if Mystico and El Desperado, that is such a Fire Pro Wrestling random tag team of Desperado and Mystico, but if they want a shot at the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championships, they have to earn it. Certainly a brand new team, so they have to physically stake a claim to this. But I would say, sort of what we might see in AEW, what they call it, an eliminator match, right?
Sure.
It's that kind of a feel right now as Mystico and Desperado versus Fujita and Eagles. What a hot tag team match that is! Just to completely drop on us by surprise over the course of this Dontaku show.
Yeah, I think that's one that could main event any arena, anywhere that we go on this Dontaku series, and we're getting it smack dab in the middle of the card right now. So, if that goes to show how much intrigue there is, just top to bottom on this thing. It's something really special. So, I'm very excited to see Mystico back in a New Japan Pro Wrestling ring. He's going to be back in Saga Arena by the time that everyone's hearing this. But, when it comes to our major flagship events, Wrestling Dontaku is going to see Mystico and El Desperado team together. I think that's going to be awesome. You know what else is going to be awesome, Chris? We are going to be talking about the Never Openweight Six-Man Tag Team Championship. We are going to be talking about Bishamonten defending against Hanare, Great-O-Khan, and Will Ospreay. And this is the first time that Will Ospreay is challenged for championship gold in the wild here in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't think any of the three challenging members of United Empire have been six-man tag team champion in my recollection.
No. I tell you what, this is, do you know the last time Will Ospreay challenged for the Never Openweight Six-Man Championships?
When?
Wrestle Kingdom 11.
Oh,
so
wow.
9 years ago, and that was a gauntlet match. Right, so the only time that he's been in a 3-on-3 for the Never Six-Man Championships, Will Ospreay, Rocky Romero, our good friend, and Trent Beretta were the challengers. Who were the champions?
Oh God,
name one.
Oh God, Tomohiro Ishii.
No.
Oh, okay, then I don't know. Give me some.
Okay, your champions were Ricochet,
Oh.
Satoshi Kojima,
Oh.
and David Finlay.
Oh man. Oh, what a team. God. What an era. Oh my man.
Well, this was, there was a lot that happened to lead to that trio specifically being the champions.
Sure.
But so, I mean, you're talking about basically, essentially a 10-year gap in between Will Ospreay challenging for those championships. So Ospreay saying, hey, came into the business as a tag team wrestler, but has never had a single team championship. Over all the years that he spent in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Him and Robbie Eagles challenged for the IWGP Junior tags, but never won them. Never went for the tag team titles. Never went for the Never Openweight Sixes. And I think probably this time away has had him reassess where he is in his career, and being able to come back, alongside Hinari and Great Okan. That sort of, not an original three. Hinari came in a little bit later on, but as close as you can get to the sort of founder members, I suppose, and being very, very successful with it. But at the same time, I think Great Okan and Hinari, you saw in that match, that tag team match with Bishamon and Korakuen Hall, they're very much the modern aggressive United Empire, which is almost in a way a callback to the original very highly aggressive United Empire. One wonders, how does that truly align with where Will Ospreay is as a human being at this point in time? That is the only question that I would have, because otherwise, in terms of raw ability, those three should be the new Never Openweight six-man champions, especially when you consider, okay, Boltin Oleg is not exactly going to be 100% fit and fresh after that Never title match with Ren Narita the previous night. Like, win, lose or draw, that is a match where you have Boltin at a little bit less than 100%. Which still, like, Boltin's like 70% is most other wrestlers 100%. But you have a champion team that's potentially at their most beatable against a United Empire team that's going to be fresh, very hungry, and on paper, like, really, really impressive.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I'd argue, Chris, that this is one of the most stacked Never six-man tag title matches that we've seen 3-on-3 outside of the Tokyo Dome Rambo. I'd argue this is, there's a reason this is the semi-main event of the entire series, right? And I think that the result is going to be dependent heavily on not only how much damage Boltin Oleg takes on night one against Ren Narita, but really the result of that matchup, I think, is going to play a major factor one way or another too, confidence-wise for Oleg. And, Oleg is such an important piece. He's the Secretary of War to the Goto Revolutionary Army, in my mind. So,
really,
in my mind, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does the Secretary of War do?
Well,
answer the phones.
I think he directs where you go. I don't know. Point being.
Oh,
yeah.
I had an image just big man Boltin sitting down at his desk.
Sure. Yeah, he's typing away on his little laptop.
Down to the veins. Yeah.
Oh man, that's great. He's got his little glasses over his mouth. That's great. But you see the point I'm making, right? Like, Boltin Oleg is going to be the heavy hitter, and I think you need someone at full strength on that side to step up against a guy like Hinare, for instance, who is always going to be willing to take the fight to whoever. So that's just going to be a really interesting fight, and it's going to be one that really sets the pace, of course, for our main event. All the pressure on the shoulders of Callum Newman, much the way that we saw 1 year ago in a very different scenario, a very last-minute scenario in 2025's Dontaku series, where Callum Newman took the place of Jeff Cobb against Hiroki Goto in a heavyweight title match. Now Newman on the other side of that fence, the heavyweight champion. I don't think any of us could have predicted that 1 year ago, and it's put up or shut up time. We talk all the time about how difficult the first defense always is for a new champion, and right now Callum Newman is facing one of the hardest challengers that he could possibly have chosen, and that being Shingo Takagi.
Yeah, I said when I had that conversation with Ospreay, we talked about this, and obviously 5 years ago you had Shingo Takagi in this same spot of challenging a shock new British IWGP champion. And I mean, the point he made was very, very true 5 years ago, still is very true today, that you're going to have probably one of the hardest tests that you can imagine for a professional wrestler physically is against Shingo Takagi. And the point then for all sorts of reasons where it was in 2021 with Ospreay, that he was a first-time champion, feeling the weight of expectations on his shoulders, and a lot of people then, as now, sort of critical of the fact that Ospreay had won the championship. Do you really belong in that spot as a top guy, as Callum Newman is the top guy now and the youngest to ever be it? And as much as it was a case of battling Shingo Takagi, Callum Newman also has to battle against the pressure of those perceptions, has to battle against the pressure of affirming to everybody. And we've seen it so many times, whether it's with Shota Umino, whether you've seen it with David Finlay, or on and on and on, of people that are those very late people that are running to keep up with the bandwagon, right? And Newman has to drive that bandwagon. I'm really stretching this metaphor so far that those people get left behind. He really has to prove himself as being undeniable. I mean, Ospreay said that of that match 5 years ago with Shingo Takagi at Dontaku, the added pressure of doing it during a COVID crowd as well, and having one of the certainly one of the matches of the year in 2021. But the after effect of that was taking himself out, that he was put on the injured list, that he had to vacate that championship. And Shingo Takagi went on to win that vacant title. So I think there's another aspect there as well, of like Shingo saying in that press conference a little while ago that while yes, he has been the top champion, has been the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, he didn't hold the current V4 belt that Callum Newman holds, but also he didn't beat a champion to win that championship. And I think that's always been something that has rankled with Shingo Takagi. That little asterisk of like, you didn't beat a champion to win that championship. The title was vacant. Not only was the title vacant, I think if you really dug down deep in it, there were people saying that Kazuchika Okada had just recovered from COVID like about 2 days before they wrestled that match in Osaka Joe Hall. So there was always perhaps one of those things where you stay awake at night as a wrestler, where you're thinking, did I really deserve that moment there? And the only way to really prove that point is to beat the champion in Callum Newman here at Dontaku. And I think like there is, maybe the odds makers might think Shingo Takagi hasn't been a champion in 5 years, and maybe he's the underdog in this one, but I would argue against that fact. I think that he's going to be very, very highly motivated against Callum coming up, and there is a risk where Newman being so young and also having that hubris as well. I think he is doomed to be very, very hubristic in terms of certainly if you listen to his attitude in interviews and comments as of late.
Well, Shingo Takagi had never beaten a champion to win the championship. You're right about that. He's also never beaten the champion in any singles competition before. There's only been one between Shingo Takagi and Callum Newman. This is a story I assume I'm going to tell in Fukuoka, and I'll tell it here too a little early. I remember being there, G1 Climax 34. It was Callum Newman's first G1. It was my first G1 for that fact. And as nervous as I could have been, Callum Newman was 10 times such. And I remember walking up to him outside a locker room in Nagasaki, and I said, Callum, how are you feeling? And he said, Shingo Takagi is the wrestler that made me fall in love with pro wrestling. He's one of them. Callum Newman is very heavily inspired by that Dragon Gate era that Shingo Takagi is so famously known for before his time in New Japan. And so Callum Newman, showing a lot of nerves on that night, still managed to win via Ozcutter, by the way, which I think is a very interesting and important point to bring up. And this is around the time that Callum Newman was still getting accusations of, he's just Will Ospreay. He's just Will Ospreay, just because of that connection, which at the time we talked about being completely unfair. And Callum Newman has proven us to be correct on that fact, because now no one's saying that anymore. There's no right to be able to do so. He standing on his own 2 feet as IWGP Heavyweight Champion. And I guess my final point here, Chris, is that I don't think we're going to be seeing those nerves whatsoever that we were able to see back in Nagasaki 2 years ago in the G1 Climax. I think this is going to be a very differently paced matchup. I think it's going to be a very different demeanor for Callum Newman coming out, and rightfully so. He's the heavyweight champion. The burden of proof lies on Shingo Takagi more than it does Newman here to walk away with the gold, and I think that is that's going to be the telling factor in this one for me.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think, even when, I think when we spoke to Callum before, 1 year ago, before he wrestled Hiroki Goto, he was sweating bullets. He was really, really nervous, and just the transformation from this time last year to now is immense. I think it brings you. You brought the point up of the Oscar-cutter, Shingo Takagi saying, like, after he got hit with that hurt more than any Oscar that I got from Ospreay. And I think as well, as the typical background accompaniment to this podcast is the man emptying the vending machine down the corridor. But I think as well, Callum rather, being very heavily influenced by Shingo Takagi, made use of the Made in Japan as his primary finish for most of the times he was on the independents in England, right? And hadn't used what he calls the Made in Essex until just recently, just to rub it into Shingo Takagi, but dropping Daiki Nagai on his head, and Shingo had to be like, God damn it, that's better than anything I ever hit, So I think like there's always those points where we've said, and countless who are in the know have always said that Callum Newman at this stage, Callum Newman at 22, is leagues better than Will Ospreay was at 22. Right, and I think there is that argument as well, which Shingo Takagi would probably basically admit that Callum Newman at 23 is better than Shingo Takagi was at 23.
Right.
And at 23 years of age, there's so much improvement to go from there. But the point is, right now he's the world number one. He's the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. And, so it becomes just as it was with Zack Sabre Jr. a few years ago, where it's like, well, you have to cross off the qualifying factors. The best British wrestler, the best technical wrestler, is just the best professional wrestler, right? And I think that's the process of elimination that Callum Newman will go on over the course of however long he's the champion, or however long he's at the top of this business. Of it's not that I'm better than wrestler X at this age or wrestler Y at this age. It's like, no, I'm just better than everybody. I think that is the burden of proof, and you don't really get over that, certainly until you've gotten at least one defense in the books, and that is what Callum Newman, I think, is fighting against. I think that the pressure is significantly on Callum Newman, because all of a sudden now, I don't think anybody was leaning on Callum Newman 1 year ago, a surprise challenger, to either A, beat Goto at that point in his career 1 year ago, or B, to draw the houses, quite frankly, right?
Sure.
Here you have now Callum Newman is in this spot, right? He is at the top of the game. There is a lot of pressure. He is doing a lot of media, and not only can you be at the top in terms of getting the job done in the ring, but can you be at the top in terms of houses, in terms of world subscriptions, and on and on and on. So there is a huge burden of proof to be put on Callum Newman on this match.
No, you're absolutely right about that. And of course, after this event, it's going to lead us right on the road to Dominion, of course. And I think that this matchup, obviously, one way or another, is going to shape up that Dominion card quite nicely. And I, for one, I may not like the way Callum Newman carries himself nowadays, but God, there's something that I find almost inspiring, even if I shouldn't, about a 23-year-old kid winning the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And, I'm newly 24, so I can say that now. But yeah, like Callum Newman is going to have that on him. Shingo Takagi, a very different route, but a very much necessary victory for Takagi here as well. We're going to see who walks away with the win. And Chris, that right there is our May 3rd and May 4th preview of Wrestling Dontaku 2026. Any final thoughts?
I think so. There's two big things here that obviously, of course, we're on the road, and everything is on the road to something else. Everything is always connected. So of course, Dontaku, we'd move on 2 days after Dontaku. By the way, there'll be an event live in Japanese, English and post, where we're going to the Ignition to Dominion event, right? We don't know what's going to be on the card because everything's going to be determined. The fallout of Dontaku is going to be happening, in Saga on the following Tuesday. And that is going to certainly set major directions when it comes to Dominion as well. Osaka-jo Hall is going to be massive. Best of the Super Juniors is going to be massive. G1 Climax, July the 11th. Already when it comes to opening nights for G1, whether domestically or internationally, one of the fastest selling opening nights for G1 in recent years. So that's hugely exciting, and we want you there. But if you can't be there, the best place to be there is on NJPW World. If you're a subscriber, then you should tell friends. And if you're listening to this because this is free, this is like, hopefully we're giving you somewhat of a window into what New Japan is like and what this 2 nights in Dontaku is going to be like. And if you're at all curious, we would love you to subscribe to NJPW World. You get all of this. It's the best value in professional wrestling. Is the king of sports streaming. We're here doing live coverage. So how many events did you get this month?
Oh gosh.
A crazy number of events just this month alone. I would say 90% or thereabouts live in English, or if not, you're doing English coverage in post the next day or 2 days later. And there is nothing quite like it. And especially as well, like the 50-year archives that we've had and we've been putting, if you're not confused about, why did this match happen here and when and who these people are? Well, we're doing, English archival introductions to every single one of those matches for like the first 12, 13 years of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So like you can absolutely follow through chronologically what's happening in real time. So I think there's really no better deal in terms of the wrestling streaming space. And I know you and I are sort of paid to say that, so take that with a pinch of salt. But there's no better place to be, in my opinion, than NJPW World. And we want to be able to do more. We want to keep improving our coverage. We want to keep offering you new content. And as much as Walker might be upset about it, we want to have Gino Gambino around every now and then.
Right.
And the only way for that to happen is for you to tune in and enjoy NJPW World and tell more people about it. So if that's your homework, if you're a World subscriber, then tell a friend. And if you're not a World subscriber, give it a shot this weekend. And I think you'll be very, very pleasantly not pleasantly surprised, but pleasantly pleased with what you get for your money.
Wow, that was great, Chris. You should do more of this. You should do more. I'm jazzed up. I think I'm going to go to NJPW World right now, and I'm going to subscribe on 5 different accounts. I'm excited. Hey, this has been the NJPW Official English Podcast. For Chris Charlton, I've been Walker Stewart. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time for more right here on the Official NJPW English Podcast.
Bye.